Ben had been doing hospital cleaning in Chicago for 10 years. He quietly cleaned corridors, never chatted much with any doctor or nurse, until that critical moment when the professional medical expertise he displayed during a medical emergency raised questions in everyone's mind. The combat medic precision Ben exhibited made the hospital staff ask, "Who is this custodial worker really?" Before we begin this story, please tell us in the comments which city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be told, please subscribe. Because real heroes sometimes work in the most ordinary jobs. Rush University Medical Center, Chicago, Illinois. 664 beds, Level 1 Trauma Center, one of the busiest hospitals in the Midwest. 24/7 emergency operations, life and death decisions every hour, controlled chaos that never stops. And in this medical universe, Ben Washington moves quietly through the halls. Ben Washington, 52 years old, medium height, steady hands that have seen more than most people could imagine. Same uniform every day, gray custodial scrubs, rubber gloves, ID badge that simply says Environmental Services, mop bucket and cleaning cart, his constant companions. He's worked the same routine for 10 years. Night shift, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Clean patient rooms, sanitize equipment, maintain sterile environments. Essential work that keeps the hospital functioning. Invisible work that nobody notices. Medical staff see him but don't really see him. He's part of the infrastructure, like the ventilation system or the backup generators. "Excuse me, can you clean room 314? "Thank you, Ben." He nods, works, fades back into the background. Hospital administrators know him as Reliable Ben, never misses a shift, never complains, handles biohazardous materials with perfect protocol, model employee, perfect invisible support. But Ben Washington has a secret. 15 years ago, he lived in a completely different world. Sergeant Ben Washington, U.S. Army 68W Combat Medic, 101st Airborne Division, Afghanistan, 2007-2009. Forward Operating Base Medic, Trauma Specialist, the guy who kept soldiers alive when everything went wrong. Nobody knows this, because Ben never talks about it. When he applied to Rush Medical Center, his background check showed military service, medical training. The hospital hired him for his attention to detail and understanding of sterile procedures. They assumed he'd been a military hospital orderly. For 10 years, nobody has asked for specifics. Ben lives in a small apartment in Pilsen, Chicago's Mexican neighborhood. 1 bedroom, basic furniture, everything clean and organized with military precision. But in the hall closet, there's a footlocker he hasn't opened since moving to Chicago. Inside, Army combat medic uniform, medical insignia, unit photos from Afghanistan, combat medical badge, certificates from advanced trauma training, and something else, a complete civilian trauma kit. Professional grade, military spec, everything you'd need to save a life in the field. Ben never opens it, but sometimes, late at night, he can still hear the helicopters. This evening starts like any other. November 20th, Tuesday night. Chicago winter setting in, ER busy with cold weather injuries, pneumonia cases, the usual urban medical challenges. Ben starts his shift at 7 p.m. Night supervisor for environmental services, 3 junior staff under his command, routine briefing, patient room turnover, OR, deep cleaning, biohazard disposal. "Busy night already," says Maria, day shift supervisor, as she hands over the assignment sheets. "Multiple trauma cases, OR running overtime, ICU at capacity." Ben nods, reviews the priorities. Trauma surgery cleanup, ICU equipment sterilization, ER turnover preparation. Standard Tuesday night at a Level 1 trauma center. 8:30 p.m. Ben cleaning post-surgical equipment in the OR prep area, scrubbing blood from surgical tables, sanitizing instruments, maintaining the sterile field that saves lives. He works methodically, precisely. Every surface cleaned to military standards, every protocol followed exactly. The surgeons never see him, but their success depends on his work. 9:45 p.m. Ben moving through the ICU, emptying waste containers, restocking supplies, monitors beeping, ventilators breathing for patients who can't breathe for themselves. The sound of modern medicine keeping death at bay. He passes room 3 and 18, Mrs. Rodriguez, post-operative cardiac surgery, stable but critical. Ben has cleaned her room every night for a week, watching her progress through her vital signs display. Tonight, something's different. Her heart monitor showing irregular rhythm, blood pressure dropping, oxygen saturation declining, small changes that most people wouldn't notice. But Ben notices. Combat medics learn to read vital signs like weather patterns. He continues his route but keeps glancing back at room 318. The numbers keep getting worse. 10:15 p.m. Ben finishing ICU cleaning when he hears it. Not an alarm, not yet, but the subtle change in Mrs. Rodriguez's monitor pattern that means trouble. He looks around. No nurses in immediate sight, everyone busy with other patients. The ICU is understaffed tonight, normal for a Tuesday. Ben approaches room 318. Mrs. Rodriguez is unconscious, but her breathing is shallow, labored. Heart rate erratic, blood pressure dropping steadily. This isn't stable recovery. This is someone dying. Ben looks down the hallway. Still no medical staff visible. He knows he should call for help, press the nurse call button, follow protocol. But Mrs. Rodriguez doesn't have time for protocol. Ben enters the room, checks her pulse manually, weak, thready, inconsistent with the monitor reading. Looks at her surgical dressing, no visible bleeding. Checks her medication IV, flowing normally. Then he sees it. The central line catheter in her neck, installed during surgery for medication delivery. Its shifted position, partially dislodged. Air entering the line, creating an air embolism that's stopping her heart. Ben knows exactly what this is. He's seen it before, in a field hospital in Kandahar, when a soldier's IV line got compromised during a mortar attack. He also knows exactly how to fix it. But he's not a doctor. He's not a nurse. He's a janitor who's not supposed to touch patients, let alone perform medical procedures. Mrs. Rodriguez's oxygen saturation drops to 85%. Her lips are turning blue. Ben makes a decision. 10 years of hiding his medical training ends in that moment. Ben positions Mrs. Rodriguez in Trendelenburg position, head down, feet elevated, to prevent the air embolism from reaching her heart. Classic field medicine technique for air embolism management. He clamps the central line to stop air entry, then carefully repositions the catheter to proper depth and angle. Textbook procedure he's performed dozens of times in combat conditions. Mrs. Rodriguez's vital signs immediately stabilize. Heart rate steadying, blood pressure rising, oxygen saturation climbing back to normal range. Ben steps back, removes his gloves, returns to his cleaning cart. The whole procedure took 90 seconds. 3 minutes later, ICU nurse Jennifer arrives for routine vitals check. "How's Mrs. Rodriguez doing?" she asks Ben casually. "Seems stable," Ben replies, continuing to clean. Jennifer checks the monitors, notes the improved readings. Looks like she's doing better than earlier. She doesn't notice the repositioned central line, doesn't realize that Mrs. Rodriguez was dying 3 minutes ago. Ben finishes cleaning and moves to the next room, but Jennifer is experienced enough to notice something. The patient's position is different, the central line looks freshly adjusted, and the improvement in vital signs is too dramatic to be coincidental. She checks the room's electronic log. Only one person has been in here since the last nurse visit. Ben Washington, Environmental Services. Jennifer doesn't say anything immediately, but she watches Ben more carefully for the rest of the shift. 11:30 p.m. Code blue alarm throughout the hospital. Emergency in the ER, multiple trauma victims from a car accident. All hands needed immediately. Ben is cleaning on the 4th floor when he hears the announcement. Not his department, not his responsibility. He should continue his assigned work. But old instincts are hard to suppress. Ben heads toward the ER. The scene is controlled chaos. 3 trauma victims, 2 adults and a teenager, all critical. Doctors and nurses working frantically. Blood everywhere. Multiple surgeries needed simultaneously. Ben stands in the doorway, watching. He shouldn't be there, but nobody notices one more person in scrubs. That's when he sees the problem. Trauma Bay 3, the teenager. Motorcycle accident, unconscious, massive head trauma. The attending physician is trying to intubate, insert a breathing tube, but can't get proper visualization of the airway. The kid is dying. Brain swelling, airway compromised, seconds away from cardiac arrest. Ben has seen this before. In Afghanistan, when a convoy hit an IED and a young soldier had the same injury pattern. The doctor tries again to intubate, fails, blood pressure dropping, heart rate climbing, brain being deprived of oxygen. "I need surgical airway," the doctor shouts. "Get me a cric kit." Cricothyrotomy, emergency surgical opening of the airway through the neck, last resort procedure, high risk, but necessary when intubation fails. Nurse rushing to get equipment, but it will take precious minutes to set up, and the kid doesn't have minutes. Ben steps forward without thinking. "Doctor," he says quietly, "try the bougie." Dr. Sarah Chen looks up, surprised to see a janitor speaking medical terminology. "What?" "Bougie introducer. Slide it in first, then railroad the tube over it. Works better with facial trauma when you can't see the cords." Dr. Chen stares at Ben. The suggestion is medically sound, advanced airway management technique, not something a custodial worker should know. But the kid is dying, and sometimes you take help wherever you find it. "Get me a bougie," Dr. Chen orders. The nurse hands her the thin, flexible introducer. Dr. Chen slides it into the teenager's airway, feels it pass through the vocal cords, then slides the breathing tube over it. Perfect intubation. Airway secured, oxygen flowing, brain getting the blood flow it needs. The teenager's vital signs immediately improve. Dr. Chen looks at Ben with amazement. "How did you know to suggest that?" Ben realizes what he's done. 10 years of carefully maintained anonymity blown in one moment of trying to save a life. I used to work in medical field." "What kind of medical field?" The entire trauma team is looking at him now. Nurses, residents, technicians, all wondering how a janitor knows advanced emergency medicine. Ben takes a deep breath, the secret he's kept for a decade about to come out. "Army combat medic, 101st Airborne, Afghanistan." Silence in the trauma bay, except for the steady beep of monitors showing stable vital signs. Dr. Chen processes this information. "Combat medic, how advanced was your training?" "Advanced trauma life support, emergency medicine, field surgery, whatever it took to keep people alive until they could reach a real hospital." "How long?" 2 years active deployment, 15 years since discharge." Dr. Chen looks at the intubated teenager, then at Mrs. Rodriguez visible through the ICU window, then back at Ben. "Ben, I need to ask you something. Mrs. Rodriguez in ICU 318. Her central line was repositioned tonight. The nurse's notes don't show any medical staff adjusting it." Ben knows he's caught. "Her line was compromised. Air embolism risk. She was in distress." "You repositioned her central line?" "Yes, ma'am." "That's a medical procedure. You're not licensed to perform medical procedures." Ben nods. "I know. But she was dying, and nobody else was available." Dr. Chen studies Ben's face, sees the calm competence, the medical knowledge, the moral weight of someone who's made life and death decisions before. "Ben, we need to talk. Not here, not now, but soon." The next morning, Ben is called to the hospital administration office. He expects to be fired, possibly arrested for practicing medicine without a license. Instead, he finds Dr. Chen, the chief of emergency medicine, and the hospital's HR director waiting for him. "Ben," Dr. Chen begins, "we've reviewed your military records. Your medical training is extensive, your service record exemplary." "Yes, ma'am." "You saved Mrs. Rodriguez's life last night. You also provided critical assistance in the trauma bay that saved a teenager's life." "I just did what needed doing." "The question is, why are you working as a janitor when you have advanced medical training?" Ben shifts uncomfortably in his chair. "When I came back from Afghanistan, I had some issues. PTSD, adjustment problems. Couldn't handle high-stress medical situations anymore. But last night you handled 2 high-stress medical situations perfectly. That was different. People were dying." Dr. Chen leans forward. "Ben, we'd like to offer you a position in our emergency department. Medical technician, working under physician supervision. Use your training officially. Help save lives legally." Ben shakes his head. "I can't. The pressure, the responsibility. I tried working in civilian hospitals before. Couldn't handle it. What if we started slowly? Part-time, low-stress situations, with full support and counseling available?" Ben considers. For 10 years, he's hidden his medical knowledge, suppressed his training, denied the part of himself that knew how to save lives. But last night reminded him why he became a medic in the first place. Can I still do custodial work, keep my current schedule? Why would you want to? Because cleaning is peaceful, quiet. Nobody dies if I miss a spot on the floor. Dr. Chen smiles. We can arrange a hybrid position. Environmental services during quiet hours, medical support during emergencies. Best of both worlds. Ben accepts. 6 months later, Ben still walks the halls of Rush Medical Center at night, still cleans rooms, still maintains sterile environments, but now he also responds to medical emergencies, assists with trauma cases, teaches advanced first aid to other hospital staff. His custodial cart now includes medical supplies alongside cleaning equipment. His uniform shows both environmental services and emergency medical patches. Mrs. Rodriguez recovered fully from her surgery. She never knew how close she came to dying, or that her life was saved by the quiet janitor who cleaned her room every night. The teenager from the motorcycle accident also recovered, graduated high school, went to college, became an EMT. He sometimes visits the hospital, always asks about the janitor who helped save my life. Ben still lives in his small apartment in Pilsen, still keeps his military gear in the hall closet, but now he opens it occasionally, looking at old photos, remembering the good parts of his service. The trauma kit he never thought he'd use again now sits in his hospital locker, ready for the next emergency. Other veterans started seeking him out. Combat medics struggling with civilian careers, former soldiers dealing with PTSD, anyone trying to bridge the gap between military medical training and civilian health care. Ben doesn't advertise it, but he doesn't hide anymore either. The hospital provides a small conference room for informal support group meetings, veterans helping veterans, sharing experiences, finding ways to use their training in civilian settings. One evening, a young Army medic, recently discharged, visits Ben during his shift. Sergeant Washington, I heard you help veterans transition to civilian medical work. Ben finishes sanitizing a surgery suite, looks at the kid, recognizes the struggle, the lost identity, the question of whether military training has any value in the civilian world. What's your story, soldier? Just discharged from Afghanistan. 2 years as a medic, field trauma, intensive care transport, trying to figure out what to do next. Have you considered hospital work? Yeah, but it's different here. Politics, bureaucracy, insurance issues. In the field, you just save lives. Here there's so much other stuff. Ben understands. The mission doesn't change, just the environment. You still save lives, just with better equipment and backup. They talk until dawn. Military medical training, civilian applications, finding purpose in structured healthcare settings. How do you balance it? The young medic asks. Being a civilian but keeping your military skills? Ben looks around the hospital, the ICU where Mrs. Rodriguez recovered, the ER where the teenager was saved, the halls where dozens of lives are saved every night. You don't balance it, you integrate it. Use every skill you have in whatever way helps people. The young medic nods. Can I come back? Learn more about transitioning? Doors always open. We help each other here. 2 years later, Ben is still at Rush Medical Center, still walking night shifts, still cleaning and saving lives in equal measure. The hospital wall now has photos, veteran employees, medical success stories, community outreach programs. Ben, in most of them, usually in the background, always focused on the work. Ben still doesn't talk about specific combat missions, still doesn't seek recognition for his military service, but no longer hides his medical expertise. And every night at 10:15 p.m., when he passes ICU room 318, Ben remembers the moment he stopped pretending to be someone else and started using his skills to protect people who needed him. Because sometimes serving means working in shadows. Sometimes it means stepping forward when medical emergencies demand action. And sometimes it means understanding that a medic's oath doesn't end when the uniform comes off. It just finds new patients to protect. Ben Washington, Army combat medic. Hospital custodian. Hero who chose invisible service until medical crises required his expertise. The training he thought he'd left in Afghanistan became the foundation for civilian healthcare service and veteran mentorship. Because real heroes don't retire from saving lives, they just find new ways to heal. So I ask you, Have you ever been cared for by someone whose background you never suspected? Someone who served as a combat medic, then chose civilian healthcare with extraordinary dedication? Share their stories in the comments. Because heroes like Ben Washington deserve recognition, even when they prefer to work behind the scenes. Subscribe if this story moved you. Because here we honor those who serve in many forms, in many places. Next time you see a hospital custodian, maintenance worker, or any healthcare support staff, remember, they might be carrying more than cleaning supplies. They might be carrying the skills, experience, and dedication that could save your life when a routine night becomes a medical emergency. Thank you for watching. And thank you to all the Bens out there, keeping our hospitals safe and our patients alive, one shift at a time.